Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to our first annual informational meeting. Just a little bit of a background on this particular meeting. We were talking, I went to an LLC meeting and I was talking to some people on the endowment fund, and then I was talking to some people with some other items that were going on that were pressing. And out of that conversation, a couple of us said, probably would be a bad idea to bring in the congregation and say, this is where we're at midpoint in the budget. And it's not a bad idea to come in at this midpoint because in just a few weeks, we're going to be starting stewardship. So this gives us an idea of what we're looking at, where we've been, and where we're planning to go. Again, as an informational meeting, we're not conducting business, so there will be no vote. I'm not asking Sam to take notes, but it'll be recorded on the live stream. Sam's applauding. Also, with this, I'll be taking some notes. At the bottom of the information sheet, you have my telephone number and my text, or my email number. Please, if there's something that came up here that you would like to have some follow-up on, feel free to give me a call. Feel free to shoot an email to me. If I can't answer your question, I will find people that can. And with that, the people that can answer your questions, I'd like to take a few moments. I want to recognize the council members that are here. And Sam, if you stand. Sam is our council secretary. Wanda is our financial secretary. Lucy is our treasurer. Pastor Chad. David Fosselman is our director of lifelong information and office administrator. Pam Cochran is our liaison to Bridge. John Molinaro, who couldn't be with us today, is Impact Giving and Finance. Chris Nani is our liaison to lifelong formation. Dan Snoddy is liaison to Life Together and probably the chief chef, right? As far as the dinners are concerned. Karen is our outreach liaison. I am your I am your liaison to the personnel committee that does interviews of all non-rostered employees. John Dino is liaison to property. Ellen Peterson is our liaison to social ministry. Mindy Ford is our liaison to stewardship. Going to be a very busy lady in the next few months. Steve Chakowski is our liaison to worship and music. Jane Unger is our chair of that committee and also coordinates all the volunteer lists. Hint, hint. I feel so moved. And then Jim Story is our liaison to LLC. These are your council members. If you have any questions, see them. Thank you, folks. Now, my second pitch, sorry, didn't mean to step on that. Second pitch is, as I'm going off of council this year, I'm part of the committee that is supposed to find people to replace and also for candidates. So in the next few months, I may be haunting you as far as running for council. It's a very worthwhile, enriching experience. And now it leads us to the second item, dealing with the financial secretary's report. In the packet that you received, you should have the recent financial secretary's report, and I really would like Wanda to explain a few things on it, so to the expert,
Thank you. As your financial secretary, I'm the one who keeps track of the money coming in, and Lucy is the person who's in charge of the money going out. So I'm also the person who sends you your quarterly giving reports, who collects the pledges, and reports back to council on those totals. So In your packet, you do have the financial secretary's report for December. Oh, and let me say one thing before I forget. When your giving report comes in your email, the report itself is an attachment. And I have learned that some people don't open those attachments. And I understand why, but please do, when you see that giving report, open the attachment and take a look. You may find a surprise or two, and that's good to know. Okay, so this is the financial secretary's report for December, so just a couple weeks old there. There's a record of what the monies that came in December in the first column compared to the monies that came in the same month last year in the second column. A column for the budgeted year to date expected amounts and the actual year to date expected amounts. And you'll see all those totals. What you might be most interested in is that next to the last column, which is the over-under year to date. And you will see that in December, we were really in quite a strong position. Now that does vary month by month because people give all different ways. People give weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannually, and annually. And some of the people who give annually give in the fall, and some of them give in the spring, and some of them give in December. So those numbers do go up and down. But right, as you'll see right now, we are in a good position with our income. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Moving on then to update with Lucy as far as our treasurer's report is concerned.
Hello, friends are handing out the packages of the financial position and the budget. For those online, we will get them posted in the next day or so. I apologize for not having them online. So what you'll see here, first let me back up. As always with me, any question, anytime is great. I'm considering this to be an abbreviated version of the report I give at the end of for the congregational meeting at the end of the year. First the base, our financial base, and then our budget. And just as always, this is only a description of the wealth that we have, the financial wealth that we have. There's a lot of other ways of looking at wealth in our congregation. Wanda and I only manage the financial wealth. And again, she does the money in, I do the money out, maintaining a separation of authority and responsibility. For the financial position, you'll see our assets. Those assets equal liability and equity. So our assets are strong. We have 100, looking at the first page, we have 145,000 fairly liquid assets. LLC is separate. It is not in these financials. It's in their own financials. Liabilities, the only liabilities we have, the only total liabilities we have are 1,500. That's anticipated taxes and credit cards, which we pay out every month. In terms of equity, $1,700 now in memorials. A good bit of that is designated to youth costs. Like, again, we're doing quite fine. Any questions on that? Or again, anytime? Okay, budget. Wanda gave you a month's, the budget for a month. What I have here is actually for half a year. This is this whole fiscal year. You can see down at the very bottom as of Friday, January 12th. So some of this is even new to council, although it's probably not a surprise. Looking at the first page under revenue, you can see the anticipated impact giving from the LLC has come over 13,000. We have also sent those checks out. So, and we're doing our budgeting now, our accounting now, so you can see the money coming in and the money going out. 5510, the interest savings short-term investment. That is something new. That is largely the profit from the 6-month CD that we transferred money from Thrivent mutual funds into Thrivent CDs to get it more stable. The finance committee decided that that was a smart thing to do based on the markets. So that's the first money in from that, around a couple $1,000s. So our revenue is $170,000 so far for this year. In terms of expenses, if you look, turning the page to total personnel, we're at 45% of our personnel expenses. That's a bit low, probably because we didn't have David for the whole time, and we are not using any supply pastures yet. Programs, 52% for the year. General businesses, 107%. We had to buy a new computer, and some other miscellaneous surprises. Facilities, 62%, 63%. That's expected. Next page. Then we have benevolences. Again, here's where you can see the money going out of the LLC funds that we transferred over based on the council recommendation and congregation voting. And I really do transfer the money out into the account from the LLC in the chunks that we write out. So if you actually get the statements, you'll see 400 in, and then you'll see a check for 400 out.
Lucy,
Yeah.
These 8,300.
Pardon?
These 8,300 numbers are from church benevolence, not
It's both. There's some emergency assistance that comes from the congregation. And some of the things above that are designated giving was from the congregation that we've sent out. Some of the rest of these are the LLC.
not the 8,300. I don't think, but Kristen,
That was approved from the congregation.
Most of those are from the LLC, but the emergency assistance,
with prior years. Okay.
pardon?
I confused it with prior years.
Has your question been answered?
Yeah, that's why
Okay,
I was
I mean-
thinking the years before.
okay. So here, for this year, most of these are from the LLC, but the emergency assistance, some of that is also paid out from the designated giving from the congregation. So you can see the total expenditures, we're at 54%. Going on down, 5511, unrealized profit and loss, that's the change in value of our Edward Jones stock accounts. That we keep here because while it is a legitimate actual number, we have not gotten it because we haven't sold it. So we have to record the current value. This is how we do it in a way that doesn't have us thinking that we actually have this money in the bank, because we don't. And I wanted to go back. You'll see a $10,000. Where is it? It's under council. Okay, last thing, 8298 council action, that's $12,000. Your council did not spend $12,000 worth of things this year. That, 10,000 of that is this is where I just did the flow through of the endowment funds from the church checking into the endowment account that is managed by, is it you, Jim, or is it John, or both?
Endowment committee.
The endowment committee, yeah. So the 12,000 for council, most of that is that. Okay, questions? So we're okay, we're where we thought we would be. Sometimes the percentage is a bit high, sometimes it's lower than what we budgeted. Any questions?
Is the LLC money budgeted, Lucy, in your materials?
Yes, you can see that in the budget in the top.
And have we front-loaded that into the budget?
Yes, it's part of the budget, and it transfers over month by month.
Okay,
So far, if you look at line 4515, on the first page of the budget, you can see the total budget is $24,377. So far, I have transferred over $13,017. And then, if you go to here, to the expenses, those expenses should be $13,017.
I'm one that doesn't like to see the negative sides of any budget. I understand why it's there. Is that a result of having the financial information over 2 calendar years rather than simply in 1 calendar year?
No. What is your question?
For many years, we used a calendar year for all our finances. Several years ago, the decision was made to do it over 2 years.
Yeah, but that has not, as long as I've been treasurer, it's always been July 1st to June 30th.
I understand that, yeah. Okay, thank you. I thank you and wanted to very much.
Yeah, regardless of the calendar year, the money in and the money out, Wanda and I, we actually match up the money in, and then I try and get the money out as close as possible. Like in January, I transferred the 2 sets of funds over, and I think Mike might have signed the checks now to send that out to the organizations that we're giving money to. So, and I think we have soon the Thrive check to go out. So I think we're generally keeping our commitments and the money that we meet those commitments with pretty close together. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
No,
okay.
Lucy,
Enough. Yeah.
I think Alan, his point about the negative numbers is that your output from QuickBooks, you selecting the whole year, so you're showing what will be at the end of the year. We have not reached the end of the year yet. So the actual versus budget
Yes,
is
that's why the
based
negative.
upon 1 year versus 6 months.
Yes, yeah, I wasn't understanding your question. Yes. The budget is for the whole year. The actuals are as of January 12th. And then the percent shows us how close are we to where we should be. Okay, thank you, Tom. I didn't. Yeah.
Quick question, youth and family under equity.
Yep.
So,
$30,000.
yeah, that's highlighted, is that actual or is that?
It depends upon, to me, it's not, if you wanted to spend, the council would probably need to approve it. And because it's there, we have to have $30,000 in the bank to make up for that. That $30,000 was mostly, not all, mostly was not individual contributions from people. It was previous councils voting to flow over the profits from past years into that equity line as kind of like a savings. So, and council has decided to keep that $30,000 there and not spend it down. We had a similar amount for Katie Beth. Well, we had a similar amount for Bridge. What council decided to do with Katie Beth, we still obviously paid her out of our checking, but we decided to attribute her salary, half of her salary, which was Bridge, from that line. So we were able to spend down that amount for half of her salary. We still had the bullet from checking, and it was still real money, but we were able to clear, in my perspective, we were able to clear up that commitment and use it very appropriately for her salary. We still have a chunk of change there based on previous councils voting to flow the profits from each year into that line. Or the extras, not the profits, but the unspent funds.
So if something is needed from that line, is it there?
It will be there, one or the other.
I mean, because, council can't just say, hey, let's vote to have $100,000.
Well, we can vote for whatever we wanted,
Right,
but
that's what
the
I
question
mean.
is,
Is it
should
there?
we? Pardon?
Is it there? It is there.
Technically,
Because-
it has to be there because that's equity.
Right,
It's part of our assets.
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to use 30,000, we could pull it from our savings. We could sell mutual funds. We could change the CDs. Do you know what I mean?
I understand now.
So the liquid itself,
Investments, correct, okay.
it could come from anywhere. The actual liquid, if you want to look at the actual money that we have, look at only assets.
Yes, that's,
The current assets is the real money.
gotcha.
The equities are all IOUs, and they came from different places in the past.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
I will say that, like I said before, under, when someone passes, it's right here. Yes, memorials, thank you. Around 3,000, 2,000 or 3,000 of that was given quite a few years ago, but hasn't been spent for youth activities. So that, in my mind, I have it kind of separate. Did an individual give this in the past and say, let's use it for this, versus council in the past flowing over the unspent funds from a
Right,
thing?
right, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for everything.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you had a question, Kate. Fran?
What would be the disadvantage of going to a calendar year?
A lot of work from me. I mean, what would be, the question is, and so I surprised my kid the other day. He thinks I'm like really out there wanting to do everything. And I told him, I said, whenever there's any change, there has to be a good reason for change, because sometimes there are past reasons that we don't know about that we just don't know about. So he was like, really, Mom? I'm like, yeah, I actually do think that if there's going to be a change, there has to be a really good reason for it, because it's always more difficult than you think. So my question to you would be, why would we change to the January to December 31st year? I mean, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another.
We did that at one time, and when we went, the reason we changed was trying to get away from doing everything at the last part of the year. Finding council members.
The last part of December, the last part of the,
Last part. We did that so that we did not have to try and have congregational meetings the last part of the year.
in December.
In December, elect council members in December, we went to a fiscal year that we currently have.
Yeah.
Whether that was a wise decision or not, that's a different story. But I mean, we used to do that. December we'd have the congregational meeting. Of course, there's nothing going on in the last part of December, right? And then, that's when things started. But then they decided that it made sense to do it, so that stewardship was in the, first part of the year.
Hmm.
I mean, that was, now, we want to, it's a congregational as well, if they want to go back.
And the main question is, what's the big? So it wouldn't change the budget numbers any. It would just, with everything here, most things don't go in and out at the same time. So you have to add this or subtract that and divide by 12 and plan things. So it's, no matter what, there's, I or whoever the treasurer would have to finagle it so that it was in the right time period. It wouldn't change the budget numbers any.
I have one other comment, then I'm going to give this up. On your budget,
Yeah.
The expenses are there, you're figuring that as if we are spending an equal amount every month. And that's what is expected to have been
That's
spent.
QuickBooks breakdown is 12.
Correct.
It's our budget divided by 12.
Right. So, but this shows the budget that would have been spent.
And some are a higher percentage and some are lower, just because we haven't spent an equal amount each month.
The first page under assets, looked at ESG investing, looking at companies'
Oh,
environmental,
social.
social governance.
Social,
And,
okay.
priorities were discussed about things that we wanted to avoid in our investing.
Yeah.
Was that ever acted upon?
Almost, and
I
not
think
quite. We had a committee going, and they met, and they looked at our investments, and they were at that point more worried about another investment that looked like it was a bad idea based on what they knew about what was happening or likely to happen. So that committee made the decision to focus on, that's when they moved the Thrivent, correct me if I'm wrong, mutual funds into CDs. So that committee met, we had a good discussion about the values of the church, and that committee at that point was most worried about this one investment in mutual funds. At the last council meeting, I brought up how that committee was originally called to look at the investing in things that are more in line with how our congregation feels. So I believe that committee is going to meet again and talk about it, because we still have those original investments that concerned you and other people, investment in oil. And I think that committee is concerned also because half of that Edward Jones investment is one stock in Edward, is it Conoco? Yeah, and it's, even from a pragmatic perspective, having half your funds in one stock. So that, I believe that committee is going to be meeting again and taking up the
So just
larger
so
issue.
people know, council, it surveyed all the council members at that time, and there was agreement to avoid oil and gas, to avoid weapons manufacturing, to avoid tobacco, and there are a couple of other things that maybe Doug or others remember. But, that's, there were certain things that there was kind of obvious agreement on. So
Well,
it'd be great if they can get that.
there was a survey done, and the congregation said individually, this I like, this is no, 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 no. That financial group will take that into account. There were probably some clear ideas that we wouldn't invest in, like mines or whatever, or like the mines that blow people up, for example. The oil probably could be one of those too. There was probably less support for other things. The committee will be taking a look at it and trying to find investments that are more in line with what we know our congregation's values are based on that survey, and looking at our whole financial portfolio and seeing what would make most sense then for that. Chris?
I think another thing to keep in mind is it's been 4 years. Part of the reason it's dragged on is that the market was way down for a good year or more. So if we're going to transfer our funds to a more socially conscious investment, we were going to lose money by pulling out in a time when the market is way down. So that was part of the concern of moving funds at the time. So it has been studied, and as Lucy said, we're still working on that, but part of the delay is that we didn't want to lose a lot of our money by taking it out in a negative market.
Any other questions for Lucy?
Thoughts?
Who are the members of that committee that you're talking about?
Pardon?
Who are the members?
Molinaro, Sillery, are you? I think Alan Geiger, maybe, we'll see.
Doug?
Rod Sauer, Doug.
And just to kind of put it in perspective, that, those investments are, I don't know what the other current assets, but
It's
I mean, they're only like $100,000 out of a $1.5 million budget. So it's not like the end of the world if we, lose a little bit to get on a moral standard.
Yeah, we
It's
fully
a
know
small
that the
percent.
congregation wants us to relook at that and be more in line with what the congregation feels is an accurate, putting our money where our mouth is.
Okay, well, thank you, Lucy. Next up, LLC with Rod.
At the flesh, so. I should be an agenda attached in there. I'm gonna go over it briefly, and, I'm not gonna go line by line for the profit loss. If you have questions on that, we'll get to that later on. I also want to thank, Marilyn said get closer. Is that better?
Lean in.
Is that better? Okay. I want to thank Susan, Rose, Alan, Jeff, Sue Ellen, Jim, and Dan. And I listed them only because, first, if you have questions, those are one of the people to grab and ask. We had our annual meeting in December. It's funny, Mike called and said, hey, I'd like to come to your meeting. I try to get to every meeting for every committee. And I said, well, we only have one a year, so we picked the best day to come. It was a good meeting, it really was. Update since last July, we're 100% full for this school year and for the next school year. So we have all 21 beds full. Somewhere along the line, we have got connected with the baseball team. And I would say maybe 2/3 of the building is baseball players, and they're great. No problem, so we're lucky for that. Monthly inspections, again, we try to do that. Tony Servideo is the manager of the company we use to manage the apartments. I mean, he's the one that fills them, he's the one that does inspections every month. We found that one every month, cut down on the damages. They would walk in, I think if the people knew somebody was coming every 30 days, plus he checks on the fire extinguishers, he checks on the minor things that happen. So that has helped. I'll dive into the P&L if you want to at that point in time on questions on it. It's pretty straightforward. The only thing that sticks out to me is the monthly, I lost it here. The monthly rental management fee, $3,791. Tony elected because of tax purposes not to take the last 2 quarters in 2003. So we took it in 2024. So that should have been about another $7,000 higher. He gets 10% of the monthly rental income. It's for those who have, I know Dan was helping manage the old white houses. John, you did too. Is it worth the 10%?
That's 10% well spent, especially since he's doing inspections.
Yeah.
He does the ranges for the maintenance.
Oh yeah, he arranges everything for me. Big things have been the dryers. Tony explained to me that these kids wash their clothes many times a day in the dryer. It's not like you and I, like once a week, no, it's like 3 or 4 loads of the day that they'll run. We found out, got to buy new dryers. We found out we bought more. The little dial was breaking. The dial was like $125 and it cost $150 just for the guy to show up. So we decided to buy more expensive dryers that didn't have a dial and had the press button. So, and we found out the chute going out of the vent was improperly installed at the very, very beginning when the apartments were built. So we have to redo all those. But in the long run, it's going to cut down the cost. Tony did raise the rent, but we have people who continue to re-up, for better lack of word. He's kept their rent the same, but anybody new, it's now $625. So that's helped us a little bit. Our reserves, our savings account, Susan Rhodes came in with the idea, why don't we ladder our CDs, or turn into CDs and ladder them. There was a lively discussion on email about how much money and how to do it, but we negotiated, so to speak, out. We put $30,000 in a 6-month CD, another $30,000 in a 13-month CD. Once we get into March, if we have an extra $25,000, because we've set a reserve, we have to have this much money. Anything above and beyond that. we're gonna put maybe 20, 25 of that money in the CD. So every 90 days, there'll be a CD coming due. Because the 6 month, what if I wait 30 more days, or excuse me, 90 more days, and start another 6 month, there'll be a 6 month, and a 6 month, so every 90 days, one will come due. If we need the money. If we have to pull the money out, there's only 1 month of interest penalty, which is pretty daggone good. Right now, the savings account is 0.15%. With the money we had, I calculated was $90 we made in interest in 1 year. By laddering these CDs, we'll be probably close to $2,400 or $2,500. So would you rather have $2,400 or have $90? So it's an extra income stream for us. Dan, do you have a question?
Yes, if you would explain to the congregation what the purpose of the reserve fund is.
Alan set up a $40,000 reserve when we started this entire thing. Smart man. We needed a roof, needed a dryer, whatever it was, put that aside. We have also $12,000 we have to keep in reserve for rent deposit returns. It's not an asset of ours. It can't be counted as it's really the kids' money. It could be have to give it back at any given time. So now we're up to $52,000. Once COVID hit, and people were staying at home, taking classes, so we lost some income, and we sat down and figured out, okay, what happens if this COVID thing really hits? How much money do we need to last to stay open? And we came up with including everything that I just spoke about, a total of $110,000. That would make us last about a year and a half. So that reserve is there. What we've done is kept some available in case we need it, enough to process, and then the other part would be 16, it could be as much as $80,000 in CDs rolling every 3 months. Does that help?
In the year and a half, is it we have no renters and we've got to expend all of that money?
Yeah. With no renters, no income coming in, we don't have to pay Tony because you don't have any renters. It would be paying for electricity, paying for taxes, paying for insurance, paying the loan. We have water, recycling. I don't have the top of my head, but plus we have reserves for, we want to make sure we're available. Does that help? Now I lost where it was. Okay. Each month, per the agreement, I send out an update. I'll send out a P&L and a balance sheet to Jim, and still send it to Dan and send it to Mike for council meetings. So we report so council knows exactly what's going on, if there's any issues or financial statement we have. Okay. In October, okay, let me back up. I'm going to have to try to explain this as best I can. We're on an adjustable rate mortgage. It's a fixed rate for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, we renegotiate the loan, whatever the existing rate is at that time. The 5 years got bumped off because during COVID, I went in and did a rate modification agreement. Basically is, we were like 5.5% or 5%, and the rate was 3%. I could have gone through the whole process of bringing in financial statements and application and insurance and what, but I went to the bank and to Candy and said, Candy, I just want to sign a piece of paper that says I want to do a rate modification and we don't have to go through all this. So she creates this form. The rate goes from 5.5 down to 3, and then that term kept on going. We don't have that liberty now. We don't know what the rates are going to be, and I tell people if I knew that, I'd be on my 3rd book, and we could go to someplace where before. So, LLC is going to run numbers present to council because LLC does report to council. We're going to look at, this will get confusing, so bear with me. Okay. We're now doing it on a 20-year amortization. You know, we're taking the balance. We borrowed like $700,000. We're now down to about $530,000. Payments around $3,200 a month. In October, we have to renegotiate. In September, we'll go to the council saying, here's the balance, let's say it's $525,000, and let's look at a 15-year amortization. The rate's going to be lower, whatever the rate is. I mean, it's going to be lower than a 20-year. The payment's going to be higher. And so I'm going to throw out some rough numbers, okay? Very, very rough. We're paying $3,200 right now. We are netting around $65,000 to $70,000 because we're full. If we go 15 years, the rate's going to be higher, the rate's going to be lower, the payment's going to be about $1,000 more a month. So we're going to lose $1,200 worth of income, which would go to the Netherlands. Or do we stay 20 years, have a lower payment, and continue to have between $60,000 to $70,000 a year to get to the Netherlands? Transfer to the Netherlands. Does that help out a little bit? Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
We're on, from our conversations, I think we're on a 20-year amortization.
Now, currently, yes.
And we went through 5 years of that.
Well, we've been since 2016.
Okay. So your statement is that we would go to a new 20-year or 15. If we were on a fixed term, we'd be 15 years left or less.
Yes. So there's a balloon left. So when we did it 5 years ago, really more than 6 years ago, we were based on 20 years at $610,000. Okay. Now we're going to base renegotiate this at a lower dollar amount.
Right.
We're going to borrow less money. So we can go either way, the 20 years or 50, it depends on when. Some people want to pay the thing off early, and some people want to get as much money as we can and let it go as long as we can. So we're going to let council make that decision.
Regardless of which one you go to, the rate's going to be higher than what it is now.
Oh yeah, we're 3% now.
Well, you said, one was going to be less than the other, but both, regardless of which way we go, 20 or 15, they're both going to be higher than what we're currently playing.
Yeah.
Unless you can find some magic.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I will probably shop the loan. Hockey Valley Bank has been great to us, but you got to take the opportunity to see if somebody else out there would want to have business. So don't know. And as I said before, that thing's worth probably close to $1 million. We only owe $500,000. Being a former banker, I'd jump on that in a heartbeat. I mean, you're talking about steady income and no, almost brand new 50% debt to income ratio. Yeah, debt to loan. Yeah. And the baseball team.
Ron, I have a question.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is that the church's electricity bills have gone up. Do they pay their own electricity, right? That's not included in the rent?
They pay their own.
Okay, so we don't have any reason to need to increase the rent based on that?
No, but we brought up the point, how do I say this correctly?
However you want.
When they move out, they notoriously don't pay their last month's electric bill.
Okay.
Rather than, I worked out an agreement with AEP, Tony and I get a copy of the bill. We go ahead and pay it. So we don't have to have somebody start everything all over again. We pay it and then we deduct it from their rent. Yeah. I got a copy first year. Didn't have, not again, so. That's why if you look at the profit and loss, you'll see utilities down there at the bottom. That's what that is. We pay it, then we take the money out.
It's like a reverse, asset liability account or equity account.
Yeah.
Kind of like the rent, we hold our rent, we hold our electric.
Yeah, they pay either way.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Let's see. Yeah, I got the 3%. Again, we project $50,000 at the very, very beginning. Since we have 21 renters now, that projection has gone up 60, 65, again, it all depends. Dan has pointed out many times, the impact giving and benevolence thing, don't go on projections, they go what's in the bank. Okay. I think we passed out, last year we transferred $70,000 over to the benevolence account. This year, in January, I transferred 35. We were to project again for another 35. That would be in June. So that's 70. And I left that blank with that recent transfer I did in January at $35,000. Not included $80,000 we gave to the loan back. We had transferred at the time we started this over $250,000. $254,000.
A couple questions, Ron. First, will the LLC consider adjusting the rent because of this renegotiated loan?
We have kept that rent solid since the very, very beginning. And this is the first time we bumped it up. Tony has apartments from different companies, so he has a feeling what it is. It would be hard to do something to look at, John. That would have to be, it's a good point. I think council's going to have to look at it and see which way we want to go. And then I think Tony would have to sign off on it.
And the second question is, not related to financials, but do the tenants understand that how their rent is being used? Are they exposed to that?
I'd let Tony know to pass that on. I don't know if he has or not. Sue?
This is probably just because I'm dense. So it says that 35,000 was transferred in January, but I don't see it on Wanda or Lucy's papers. So where
LLC is totally separate.
The benevolence account is.
which was
they're not on
13
there.
But it, so 13 benevolence. So where?
It's still the checking account.
With LLC.
The LLC.
The money, okay, the money, when he says he transfers it into the benevolence account, that benevolence account still sits with the LLC. Then I go in and I transfer month by month and actually payment by payment the funds for that month's benevolence. So
They were approved in the previous budget.
yeah, that were approved at the beginning of the year, the master list of benevolence charges. That's why it's not on, it doesn't come onto the church budget until I transferred it into the church checking.
It's a good question, because I try to keep it separate. On the balance sheet, you're going to see, when you see the next one, Jim is going to have all kind of stuff on that. You'll see it's under the LLC. Lucy is signer on, has access to it, and pull that when she wants to. Our job is to keep telling people is to get the money and put it in the account. After that, somebody else will do it.
Then council tells me what to do for each year.
On Pastor Chang's question is an issue for me. I don't know what effect using all that LLC money, and I do support that, what effect it'll have on annual. I think we need to be sensitive to that, and we need not to pat ourselves on the back as a congregation saying we're doing all those things when we're doing it out of the LLC. I may stand alone with that.
No, I
But I think it's
because
important
others have raised that concern.
that we continue to give, and find ways to increase the congregation, giving increase the size of our congregation as a group.
So for those of you who did everybody hear Alan? Because I think the question is, the intention was not for that to supplant giving from the congregation. And is that your concern? And this, others have kind of expressed that too. But because for so many years the church relied on that income for our routine benevolence, you know, there may need to be more discussion about how do we balance that need with the impact giving program that was started when these new buildings were there.
And that was part of the December LLC meeting, and we decided at the very, very end, our job is put the money in, or transfer the money over, and we can maybe make suggestions or thoughts or whatever, but that's what our job is. So. Remind me not to follow these the next time.
Okay. Okay, folks, we are, great questions, great presentations. We are starting to get close on time on this, so if we would, maybe shorten up our presentations a little bit, and any questions, you know, we'll try and we'll take care of too. Jim's going to be talking about the endowment fund.
Okay, you can see I'm not John Molinaro. Some time ago, the church received a gift of $10,000 for an endowment fund. Now, the church at that time had never had an endowment fund. Many people don't understand what an endowment fund is. You know, colleges, universities, very large churches have such funds. And typically with an endowment fund, those funds are there in perpetuity. And income and earnings from investments then are used according to the purposes set for the fund. So, three of us, John Molinaro, Doug DeBrick, and I, were appointed to determine how to invest the funds, the $10,000 that we have, and other funds that might come to the church designated for the endowment fund. And many times, those funds come through last wills and testaments. So if you're giving to the church in your last will and testament, you might want to consider the endowment fund. You know, schools like Harvard probably have $100 million in their endowment funds in many different accounts. And they have money that can go out in many different ways. Obviously, you start an endowment fund somewhere, and we have $10,000 in it. So if you do give to the endowment fund, and you have a pet project or something you really like, you can certainly name that, but know that only the income from the money you give will go for the purposes of that particular project. So we met initially back in November of 2022. We took the funds, we invested them very conservatively for two reasons. One, the economy was not good. Inflation was high. The Fed was raising interest rates. It is good for, frankly, savers who put money in CDs and things, which are very safe. And that's what we did. The second reason was that we hadn't formally set up the endowment fund and all the paperwork that's necessary to do it. And John Molinaro followed through with all of that, along with the president of council, and who had to sign a lot of documents. But it took a period of time to do that. We met again in this past November, and determined among the three of us, what we advised council, is that a 70-30 mix of funds between 70% stocks and 30% bonds, three of us felt were appropriate for an endowment fund, particularly, certainly at this point. The bonds of 10% each have been invested in U.S. Treasury bonds, investment bonds, and high yield bond funds. So three different bond funds have that 30%, or about $3,000 have been divided among those three funds. And the other 70% has gone into a total market index fund. And certainly at this point, it's better to try to pick and choose. Stock is not a wise thing to do. Put it into a total market index fund, and those funds track the entire market, and you don't have the volatility that you might have with trying to pick and choose individual funds. These funds were also chosen because they are either very low fee or no fee funds, and which obviously helps us maintain the value of our investments. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to.
Just a quick point. If you look at the statement of financial position 1535, your endowment has increased by $587.88 since you started it.
Correct.
The money that the endowment investment receives will always only show up in this number. It will never be a separate interest account. That is your holding.
But we know but we do know what's corpus and what's
in the interest,
interest earnings, yes. But you can see, obviously, the market has changed a great deal in the last year. And so that's why we've made that change in investment strategy.
Any other questions for Jim? If not, thank you very much, Jim. Chris?
I first of all want to thank Donnelly Yoder, who asked me a question that led me to the paper you're getting. She wanted to know the Impact Giving Committee and the impact funds, what was the total amount given out over the years that we have given grants. And I knew all the projects, in my head, but I had never listed them out and gotten a grand total. So Rod said that the LLC has given away $250,000 over the years. I think you said that total. And you will notice that at the bottom of the sheet, the grand total been granted $202,403 over the years. This is a listing that tells you the year the grant was given, who it was given to, and the amount. You will notice we actually started in 2017 as a committee taking call for proposals. And we do it like a grant making process where we call for proposals, which are 1 to 2 page summaries. We're looking for new programs for the organization, not just to provide money for their ongoing budget, but for a new program. We also look for the sustainability. Once our grant is done, do we think this organization can continue and will make an impact in the community with the money? At the beginning, several of these grants were multi-year grants, so they were given not all at once, but over several 2 to 3 years. I'm not going to tell you exactly what they did with each one because of lack of time. But I will say the first one was to hire a part-time person, so adding staff. Several of these were building projects, which were expanding their facility and making new things in their facility that would then expand their programming and how they could impact the community. You will notice in the years the pandemic stoppage there in 2020 with not having kids in the apartments and not having the renters and a lack of income. We didn't have as many funds to give away. Plus, we had been very generous in the last 2 years prior to that and given huge grants so that we really didn't have much money at all in impact funds. And we weren't meeting, we were shut down. So there is definitely a pandemic gap there. As a committee, in our very beginning of formation, we felt like we needed to tithe 10% to the global community, along with our giving to local Athens County, Southeast Ohio organizations. So I separated at the bottom of this paper our tithe globally, and the Social Ministry Committee has helped us decide each time where those funds would be given. The Malawi one, we actually had a student worshiping with us from Malawi, and he gave a presentation about the dire need for health facilities in his country. So that was the theme we chose. Amparo, I told you what that acronym stands for, and again, that was a concern of our congregation. All these are going to the ELCA. We did not want to have to vet a global organization on whether they were going to use the funds for overhead and administration, and whether the funds would actually get to the community, the global place we wanted it to. So it's always the ELCA global initiative, but we earmark them for these designations. But these would be then 10% tithes of the money we've granted. So again, thank you to Donna Lee. I've never put all of them listed in one place, so you could see where the money has gone and the total amount. The Impact Giving Committee is actually going to start meeting. We have a meeting this Thursday, so we're going to start the next round of grants, and with less money than we've had in the past, but that's okay. We still can make a big impact in our community.
And Chris, that number is pretty accurate. It says the 202 because there's about 60,000 in the mission benevolence account. There's about 60,000 since I've.
That's what I needed to know for the committee. 60,000, but there's a portion of that still earmarked for our local benevolences.
Right.
So not all 60 is available for giving grants, right?
Right. Those. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to bug Lucy, because I'd like to Thursday night tell my committee how much we do have to spend.
Yeah, well, we transferred into our account, the LLC, which hasn't been transferred out. It would go into your account to pay, so that's about right then.
Yeah, that 202 is about right. It doesn't include what's currently there. So, yeah. Other questions?
Thank you, Chris. Next up would be Doug, doing the social ministry.
Hello. I was asked to present on the benevolences and synod allocation, because social ministry traditionally has always voted on that every year, and the proportion that would be spent on benevolences and synod allocation. It's not part of the social ministry budget, but it is the social ministry committee's responsibility to designate that. you can see at the top, and I also, in my accounting, I keep the previous 2 years as well as the current budget amount, just to show the progression. The Senate allocation has been $12,000 every year, and those are usually paid out at least twice a year. Because of our fiscal budget, sometimes it'll be 3 times, because when we get the bill from the Senate, based on that. And then it's broken down into global benevolences, about $2,170 this year designated for that. And then local benevolences, another amount for that too. They don't show up precisely on the treasurer's report, the 6-month report, because when Katie Beth was here, we broke it down so that the benevolences wouldn't be paid all at once or maybe twice a year. We pay them out. We divided it up so that we would go to different various benevolences every month. We just divided up how the money would be distributed, so it would be easier to do the accounting in the long run. I guess I had something else I was going to say. Yeah. Are there any questions right now? Yeah, Rod?
Doug, and you may not be able to answer this, I understand. I'm just going to pick out Bread for the World. $340. Is that money that people have written a check for that said, I want this to go for?
No. We do, sometimes we do separate fundraisers, like for Bread for the World, and people contribute extra money for that, donate extra money. This comes out of the church budget itself.
This year's LLC.
Right. So the money that you see reported on the financial secretary's report is money that has been donated by individuals for specific purposes. So you'll see amounts there that are in addition to what you see now.
And Lucy just made a good point. Because of the vote last June, instead of out of the church budget or the church money, the money that I have listed here, the amounts I have listed here, are coming out from money that's donated from the LLC. I also wanted to report that for the Advent and Christmas Eve contributions, we designated those for emergency fund. That's a fund that is available for the church office if we get a call for assistance for like a stay at the hotel or gasoline or food or help to pay a utility bill that's overdue. Back during the pandemic, the congregation was very generous and gave over $2,000 just in 1 month in December for that fund, but we had spent it all by the middle of last year, I think. And then, so we decided to do another fundraising drive for that, or designated the Advent and Christmas Eve contributions to that. And in Wanda's report, you'll notice there's $1,350 in that account. So again, the congregation is very generous, and I have a lot of gratitude that our congregation can be that helpful. So, are there any other questions? Did I pretty much answer what's in?
Thank you, Doug. We appreciate that. Let's see, Marilyn, on anything on property?
I hope I learned how to use my phone. You're looking at a program person and not a money person. So if you're to ask anything about money, Lucy's going to have to help me out on that one. The property committee
where we're not planning anything big at all in the next year. We have one small project that we're working on, and that is if you go down these steps that go between the church and the school and the student house, you'll look on your left and you'll see that the bottom row of that is breaking off, and there's cracks coming up the different parts of it. And actually, if you look at the other parts of that brick on that area, you'll see cracks going up through the brick. Where Steven Stoltzwitz was here looking at it, and he is, we have an estimate from him to fix some of that, which, and I'm only saying some of it because we're going to try, as soon as we know how he fixes those little cracks that's there, hopefully we can go ahead and fix a lot of those cracks, because there's a lot of them in several of those places. When he looked at it, I said, does this have anything to do with the water situation that we had in 2020? And he said, it certainly does. Your ground is settling, and which is part of the problem with the student house. It is settling, and you can see that crack in the wall out there is getting bigger and bigger. So anyway, that's one of the issues we're going to have to deal with eventually. But the one that we are going to fix is right now is the wall there. What has happened is at the bottom of that stairs, the water sits at the bottom of that stairs because the sidewalk is slanted just a tad. And that probably was not slanted before either, but it is now. And the water sits there and it freezes, thaws, and it's cracking that bottom layer of brick. So he's going to fix that, and the thing he's going to do is put 2 drains that go underneath the brick wall and out through the yard into those gardens. So he's going to put that in, plus fix the bricks, and that should solve at least that wall problem moving, so we don't have any problem with that wall. So that's the one project. And the estimate is $2,200, which is pretty a good amount, I think, for us. I think that's a really good estimate for us. So he was supposed to work on that this past week, but that's not going to happen. And I'm not sure next week's going to happen. So it's going to take a little time to get it done, but it'll get done. So if you come up that way sometime and it's all dug up or it doesn't look very good on that side, that's what's happening over there. Other than that, we don't have anything big that we're planning at all, but who knows? But having this property has been exciting sometimes. But I really thank all of you because you've been patient many times when things have been awry and out of place, and I've asked for help from different people, and this congregation is so good about helping out with doing those things. I really appreciate that. If you, I'm trying to think if there was any other thing that you needed to. Oh, we did have one of the sub pumps that was put in when the elevator was put in. It's one they have to put in that goes around the outside of the elevator. There's one inside the elevator, but there's one also outside. And that was put in when they were digging, and it may have been part of the water situation even then. Because there was water coming in, they couldn't get it to stop right. So they put this extra sub pump in there, and it's in the mechanical room down in where the elevator is, the elevator mechanical room. That one kept kicking off our electric and the little breaker, thank you. The breaker and our thing, and we kept going, what's the matter with this thing? So we looked at it, Nick and I looked at it, and we did a couple tests back and forth, and it just was not working anymore. It just was bad. The electrical system within the pump was bad. So we called somebody and then we thought, Nick said, I think I can do this. So he went, so I went to Lowe's and I got a sub pump and he pumped everything out and put it in and it works great. So the sub pump cost $200, $200 something, and Nick put it in. So he saved us some bucks along the way doing some of those things. So that was the only other thing that we've had to do lately as far as repairs. Other than that, we're kind of holding our breath with the heating system, but it'll be fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that it's getting old. So I'm holding my breath and hoping the next chairman has to deal with this. So thanks again for all your help and for any time I've asked something, people just showed up. So I really appreciate that. And this morning with the snow out here, so I appreciate that. So thanks a lot. If you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Good job. Pam?
Okay, does anybody want to stretch? Okay. So we have 2 students going to New Orleans for the ELCA Youth Gathering. That's July 16th to 20th of this year. We also have Pastor Chad and David attending. We will be housed with Peace Lutheran from Beaver Creek. And Pastor Carrie is your
sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law,
It's
okay.
Cheryl's sister.
Okay. And with their students. They're going to fly out of Dayton, we're going to fly out of Columbus, but we'll be joining in with them with all of the activities. We have Melody and Dessa attending. So we need to raise about $4,000, please. Our next activity is going to be February 11th, if you want to take out your calendars, right after church. It's kind of an early Shrove Tuesday pancake luncheon. So I will be looking for pancake flippers, and sausage turners, and egg beaters, any other verbs out there. So, and then I think one other fundraiser that David and I have been talking about is having a rummage yard sale type of thing. So we're kind of talking about that for something in the spring. Any questions?
I have no objection to the fundraisers, that's great. But if you don't meet your goal, presumably that what you need could be taken from that $30,000.
Or there is some memorial funds available. I think it's about $4,000. Also, with this pancake fundraiser, I'll be asking people who are Thrivent members so that we can apply for some matching funds from Thrivent or funds to at least buy the product.
What was my question? Is it because we're going with Peace that we don't need a email chaperone?
I'm also.
Oh, you're going to?
Yeah, I would sign up with Peace as a chaperone, but also.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And yes, but even if she wasn't going, Pastor Carrie is a woman.
Right.
So our students will stay together in one room. They don't have to have a chaperone in the room with them. So, any other questions? Having attended in New Orleans, the city is extremely welcoming and so generous with their time, and it's such an eye-opening experience for students. It's a wonderful experience. So thank you all for buying candy, which went well. We raised a little over $200 with your generosity, so thank you.
Thank you,
Pam.
Pam.
Moving on to the packet that we handed out. Really, there isn't much to report on the Memorial Garden. This was brought up in conversation with several people, and then Wanda did some research and tried to find different things. This is the existing policy that we have, the policy statement, and then the intent form. If you notice, it was approved June of 2005, so we need to go over it as a council. and I need to get a hold of documents and get them out to council. We will not be discussing this Tuesday night, but you will get the information, and probably we'll take a look at what we have to do with the document later on, and look at it probably in February, while everything else is starting to go. And it's a upcoming thing. So, any questions on that?
Tell them where it is. People may not even know about it.
Do you know where the Memorial Gardens are?
Outside.
Right outside. Right outside. And if you have a chance, when it's really nice, or even not so nice sometimes, walk through there. It's lovely. I think that's a real treasure that we have. Okay, Pastor Shad?
Just a real quick word. It's listed on there as cottage meetings. So we've had a strategic planning task force that has met intermittently through COVID, through the last couple of years, and we are at the place now where the group has formulated some questions and wants to invite folks to come to cottage meetings at folks' home to in small groups think and pray and work together on some of these questions and ideas. So Carol, thank you, has contacted and found folks who are willing to host these events. They're going to be getting an email from me and a reminder from Carol soon as well, asking for a date and time that they would like to host in their home. We've got some other folks who have agreed to be conversation leaders. And so look for, in the next few weeks, there will be sign-up sheets out in the narthex to sign up for the cottage meeting that works best for you, either by location or date and time. So it'll be self-selecting who you are gathering with, but we're really excited about these opportunities now on this side of the pandemic, which now I guess we're at endemic, to think and dream together about the future God's calling us into. And some of that is directly related to what's going to happen with the student house as well. Property has identified that it needs to come down, and it is not salvageable. It's one of those cases where it's going to be more cost efficient to remove it and be there, and something new be put there. What we've learned from the city so far is that we are kind of grandfathered in currently with that house, and if it comes down, we would need to have a plan for something on that footprint immediately, or we would probably not be able to build there. So, and all this will be explained later and more clearly, I'm sure. But what we understand is if that property comes down and we don't have a plan for something to go there, it will become green space, because the city will not, that's the current city clause, right word, breaker. So these cottage meetings are an opportunity to be together, to reconnect, to connect with new folks, to get to know each other, to have some intentional conversation, and they're going to be really good, I think, for us. So look for those sign-up sheets. Folks who have agreed to host those, you'll be getting contacted very soon for a date and a time, and those who have agreed to lead those discussions will also be contacted to go through together the plan for these meetings. That's all I need to say now. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just to say, this has been very informative.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you very much, because that was the intent. If you have any questions, which may not come up today or in the next couple of days, feel free to call me or text me, and I will get your concern out from wherever. I'm glad that we were able to meet, and I'm glad that we were able to go and get this information. Council, I'm not certain we want to have a meeting Tuesday, but other than that, thank you, folks.
Thank you.